But I think there's something that we should address that in Latin America, the Bible or the church is not touching, which is corruption. And I listened to someone in a podcast or an interview of, it was an Italian scholar of politics. He says the problem with Latin America is that besides that Latin America is multiple realities, is that when you're talking Middle East or when you're talking Asia, you're talking about one issue or two issues. But when you're talking Latin America, you're talking about several issues. And you don't know where to start. Right. And I think that's something that is really, I think the worst thing in our context is that corruption goes all the way through the big stages in politics, all the way down to the stratas of our society, and we don't have a theology that addresses that. You have, for example, people are really religious. I grew up Pentecostal, and I say that we were far right Pentecostal, because women sitting in one side, men sitting in the other side, the dressing codes and all that. But you have to be strict with the way you clothe yourself, but you can cross a red line, or you can cheat the tax. You don't pay your tax, and that's okay because you're a son of God. So we lack a theology for that, for discipleship, I would say, in our context. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
No, that's very interesting. In fact, I was talking to a woman I used to work with who was a missionary to Kazakhstan, and we were just talking about, and I just said, "Hey, did you guys have a theology of bribery? Like when you would, in what situations you might be willing to bribe, and what situations you wouldn't be willing to bribe, and did you have a theological?" And they said, "Yeah, actually, it was one in the first year they were there, because there's bribery. If I remember correctly, she said there's kind of bribery everywhere you go, at every government office, with the police officer, so." So you kind of had to have a system in place of when you would be willing to do that or not. Because it was a pressing issue. But I worked in Colombia a lot, and that was one of the areas, and in some cases it still is, where everybody in the government, judges are afraid, in the 90s, judges are going to be murdered for any decision they make. So they wear hoods, so they're anonymous judges, and police officers go to anonymous. But then that allows for more anonymous violence, and then it spins cycles to the point where you're not sure if the president themselves is part of the corruption cycle or not. If you were to say, you say you don't have a theology of it, where would you start a theology of that?
Wow, that's
sorry, easy question.
That's a big question. I don't know if that is easy. So we don't have a starting point because we have never developed a theology for ourselves. There was the liberation theology in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Then there are some sort of some parts in Latin America where the liberation theology is present, but that never got into the church. So it was like an elite group of people, scholars, actually, that get into integral mission, and I was part of that. I believe in the liberation theology in some ways. Right. I don't know if you can tag me as a heretic or something, but I believe in the part that says that the Bible, the Word of God, minister to the whole person, spirit, heart, mind, body, and I will start there, like the whole person, because there's so much concern in the body, in the external, in our context, that people forget what is inside, and how the body at the same time have a role in eternity in some ways, and at the same time how people divide in spirit and the internal person from the external person. They are one person in the community of faith and another person outside.